Hi, everybody. Welcome to EduMatch. Thank you so much for tuning in. So check us out at podcast.edumatch.org/tweet talk. So I'm here today with the amazing Raye Wood, who is a contributing author, returning contributing author to EduSnap. So she was in EduSnap 16. Now she's in EduSnap 17. So welcome to the show, Raye.
Hi, thanks for having me.
All right. Well, thanks for being here. Great to have you. So I'm going to read your bio for anyone who may not be familiar with you. So Raye is a national board certified teacher who's currently teaching third grade. She has a master's degree in teaching English as a second language and is currently writing her doctoral dissertation on self-regulation in elementary students. Her passion areas include technology integration, teacher-powered schools, and helping teachers take leadership roles while continuing to teach. So that is awesome, Raye. And once again, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely.
All right, cool. So we're going to jump into question one. So tell us a little bit about your background and who or what inspired you to go into education.
Well, it's actually funny because I had a daughter in high school, and so I thought I needed to be practical. And I went to school to be an accountant when I got out of high school. Like, this is not going to work for me. So it actually was after I got married that I decided to go back to school to be a teacher. So by the time that I finished my degree, I actually already had all my children, and my youngest two were 2 and 3 when I graduated. So I already had kids and had that mom role behind me before I started teaching, which was, I think, really helped me personally. But it's funny that I waited so long to become a teacher because I actually wanted to be a teacher when I was in second grade because my second grade teacher was absolutely amazing. And I remember thinking, I want to be just like her when I grow up. So funny story actually about that. When I student taught, she was still teaching at that school because I student taught where I went to school in second grade. And she remembered me and I obviously remembered her. And so that was just kind of cool to be able to say, hey, because of you, here I am.
That is super cool. And I know that she was probably so happy and thrilled to see you again. So that is awesome. So if you could just tell us about your journey and connecting with other educators, because you were definitely a very active member of EduMatch and other communities as well. So what have you learned along the way as you've connected with other educators?
Well, it's funny actually how I got connected so much is I kept going to conferences and workshops and people kept talking about this thing called Voxer. And I'm like, what is Voxer? I have no idea what this thing is. And I went to an ESET 2 conference and they kept talking about how they planned the entire event just through Voxer. They never actually sat down with each other. And so finally I was like, okay, I have to check this thing out. Like, I don't know what's going on. And actually you were my first connection because I want to join DocVox for people who are getting on their doctorates. And then from there, the first big EduMatch, what do you call them? Oh my gosh, the word is escaping me. Ed Camp Voice was on. And so I connected from there and then joined EduMatch, and it's kind of exploded since then. And it's hard to believe it's only been 2 years because I actually have really good friends that I've connected with who live in Australia and who live in Hong Kong. And I would not have these connections if I hadn't expanded my PLN by joining Voxer.
Well, that is awesome, and I feel so fortunate to know you, and glad that we did connect, and that you were you always share so much of yourself and your experiences. So thank you so much for that. So you wrote about restorative circles. So before we dive into your chapter, how did you become interested in restorative circles?
You know, it's funny. Everything I do really stems from my own personal classroom experiences. And the year that I started learning about restorative practices, I had a really, really difficult class to the point that I actually told my principal, if you make me teach fourth grade again next year, I'm out of here. I had a really difficult time with my colleagues. One had retired in February. There was no collaboration. It was just really, really bad. But in March, I actually found out about this training that was going on. I'd heard about restorative practices. I didn't really know what it was. So I thought, okay, I got to go and see what's going on. And from there, the very next day, I actually implemented a circle in my class and it changed everything. I actually felt kind of bad that I had made the decision to leave fourth grade because I think if I'd had that knowledge about restorative practices from the beginning, that whole year would have been so different for me and for my students.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear you on that. So I've been kind of a fly on the wall in a group that we're both in about restorative circles, and they seem really, really powerful. So I'm extremely excited I was extremely excited to see your chapter and to learn from you. So what can people expect to read in your chapter?
I think the biggest 2 takeaways people will get from this chapter is just that they're not perfect. Restorative circles are definitely unique to the person who's implementing them. And I think that that needs to really be said, because so many people that I've talked to are like, well, it's not working. Okay, you don't have to do it like me. I even tell my interns that you do not have to run a circle the way that you see me do it, because you're not me and you don't need to be me. Um, I think that what I really tried to put in there was really just an overview of what restorative practices are. We call it restorative justice because it's the same thing, but also just how do you use it in a way that helps you? And so for me, because I'm kind of zany and silly, I can get really silly. I have this doll that I use. His name is Fred. I don't know why I named him Fred. I just like, he looks like a Fred. He's just this little blue doll made out of a glove. And the kids revere him. Like they want him to sit on their desk. And that works for me. I know people who use a rock as their talking piece. So it really is very powerful, but it's also very unique and individual. And I think that that really needs to be emphasized. And I tried to emphasize that in my chapter.
Absolutely. So a lot of things in education are like that. We kind of tweak it so that it works for us and for our situation. So absolutely. So for people who don't know and are unfamiliar with what restorative circles are, could you give us like a brief description?
Sure. And I do think you're going to get a different answer depending on who you ask. For myself, I think there's really two pieces to a restorative circle. The first part is that it's used as a prevention measure by building community and really helping everybody to have a voice. That class that I had mentioned before, that I really feel if I'd started this before March, it would have changed everything, because they would have had a voice, but they also would have understood how they were making me feel. And that's the second part, is once you've built community and there's trust there, then everybody who is having a problem can come to the circle and say, this isn't working for me. And I've actually had students initiate a circle and say, somebody's bullying me, or, this other friend is not treating us very nicely and we don't like it. We don't want to put up with it anymore. And these are third graders, they're 8. I think that's really powerful. And so I think people just need to realize that they're mostly for prevention, but when it comes down to it, you use them to repair harm between students, between adults, between students and adults, just so everybody has a chance to say, this is how you made me feel, and I didn't like it. And it gives the person who's doing the problem, whatever that problem is, to say, I'm sorry, and really understand how somebody else felt by whatever it was that they did.
Absolutely. And that power in that apology is just huge.
It is.
Absolutely. Yeah. So for anyone who's listening who's new to restorative circles, and how can they get started with doing that in their own classroom?
There are so many resources. It would be an hour-long show if I listed them all. But you can definitely just do a Google search about restorative practices and you will find a plethora of information. One of the most popular books I think out there right now is called Better Than Carrots and Sticks. It's by Fisher and Frey. I think it's very surface level. I don't think it goes as deep as it could, but there is also a book called The Little Book of Restorative Practice, and I believe it's by Howard Zehr. Don't quote me on that name because it's kind of escaping me, but he's kind of like the guru of this. I actually started with some books that are just called Restorative Practices in the Classroom or Restorative Practices in the School. One has a blue cover and one has a green. I believe the author is Bob Costello. Again, don't quote me on that. But they really are very quick reads, and they really helped me just to get started. And really, I would just say, if you think that you want to try it, just quickly look it up, see what it's about, watch some YouTube videos, and then just jump right in. I think you'll be surprised at how effective they can be.
All right, great tips. So definitely jumping in, like educating yourself and then jumping in feet first. Love it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So shifting gears for a quick second, if somebody watching this, you had one piece of advice on anything educational under the sun for anyone who's watching it, then what would it be?
I think that I would tell people to take every day really as a new day. And I know that we hear that and it can be such a cliche, but when kids know truly that you are not going to hold whatever they did yesterday over their head, they're going to trust you. They're going to come to you. I've had kids come to me and disclose things that I know they would have never told anybody else. Nothing dangerous or crazy, but just things that these little people are holding in their heart. And when they'll come and share that with you, suddenly you have this breakthrough, and you're going to get so much deeper knowledge and learning out of those kiddos when they trust you. So I would just say, make sure you take every day as a new day and give them a fresh start, because we don't really know what's going on in their lives at home. And they just deserve to come to school and be safe and loved.
Yeah, that is so true. That is so true. Just opening up to them and definitely being open and being there for them. Yep. Couldn't agree more. So that is awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time today to chat with us. So one more question for you
All
before we
right.
let you go. How can people get in touch with you online?
Well, you can definitely look me up on Voxer. My handle is JREBJ00. You can find me on Twitter at Raye Wood, and you can find me online at my website, mrswood.net, mrswood.net. It's mostly for students, but you can find ways to get in touch with me if you really want to.
That is awesome. So thank you so much. And I wanted to give a quick shout out to Nina, who is watching and interacting with us on the YouTube Live. So awesomeness. Thank you for sharing about your classroom, as well as tips, takeaway tips for any educators who are watching or listening in the future. So this will be available as a podcast on our Podbeam, as well as on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, wherever you get your podcasts in the next few weeks. So definitely keep it locked, because at 6 o'clock we are going to have a tweet and talk featuring Tatul and Toya, who's going to be moderating about the K-16 bridge. So how we can make those partnerships between K-12 and higher ed. So check that out. And at 7 o'clock we have a special episode with a panel of educators sharing on how to use Buncee. And then tomorrow we're going to have Dan Krynas at 7:30 talking about his chapter on transformational leadership. So lots and lots of tweet and talks. There's going to be more on Thursday and more on next Sunday. We'll get into that as we get closer to the dates. But thank you again to Raye for joining us. Thank you so much for joining and sharing everything about restorative circles.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
All right. And the pleasure is also ours. So everybody, see you back at 6 Eastern. Bye.